Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Changing the Climate, a show where we talk about the changing world around us and how we can make it better. Brought to you by Climate Change Realty. The only real estate brokerage that donates 50% of its net commissions to 501c3 nonprofit organizations dedicated to fighting climate change. James, nice to meet you, man. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. And we always love to get the podcast started with just a little bit of background on who you are and how you got to be doing what you're doing right now at the moment.
Long story short, grew up working class, worked for the railroad for about 10 years, got busted up in a train wreck, had to go back to school, ended up with a law degree and a joint JD MBA out of the University of Texas. Worked at the Supreme Court there for a year for the Chief Justice. Decided I loved law, hated lawyers, so I used the MBA, and just been through a lot of different positions. Ended up entrepreneur in clean tech. It's always been clean tech. The last company was hybrid and electric buses, and then this company is Biochar. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Just I love creating new markets with new products.
Yeah, so you said you've always been in clean tech. Where'd the interest in that come from? Just like the necessity of it, or just a personal interest?
I've been fortunate enough to be able to guess right when viewing over the horizon. And so just, basically found technologies. I mean, the last company, our electric vehicle technology was ages beyond anybody else's. And then this one, our technology is way beyond anybody else's. We just try to create the technology and let the market come to us.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. So you were working in so now you're essentially creating a product. So it sounds like you were creating electric buses before you started making biochar?
Yeah, we had a manufacturing company. Yeah, we were in 10 countries. And then so that was, and then we had some of the largest accounts in the world in that marketplace, and then sold that company, and then moved on, bought a bunch of property up in the mountains here in Colorado. The beetle wiped us out. So this company is basically a reaction to what to do with the dead trees and create something of value from the dead trees. And it's expanded from that.
Well, that kind of explains where your inspiration for the project came from. Cool. Yeah. So let's just dive into it then. Like how did you learn about biochar? Obviously I know why you started making it. So you bought land, and then what was that beetle infestation? When did that start?
Oh, that was in so I've been doing this for 12 years. So, yeah, it's about 12 years ago. It wiped out the property we had. It killed all the trees. I mean, we had a forested piece of property, beautiful piece of property, and the beetle killed everything.
Wow.
And this was just in reaction of what to do to try to salvage the wood and make something out of it. The first time I ever heard of biochar was actually in a meeting with professors from University of Nevada. And that's the first time I ever heard the term. And then I started researching it, decided I wanted to create the product. It sounded at the time like people had it figured out. And after flying around the country to go look at technology that never was working when I showed up, I realized nobody had anything that worked. So we had to develop our own technology. And we've now got 17 patents issued. And we've been at this now. I've been at it for 12 years.
Yeah. And it's really cool. And I appreciate what you're doing. Can you explain exactly what is biochar, and then how do you create it?
All right. I will explain what our product is. Okay. Because if you Google biochar, you'll get over 1 million hits. One of the biggest mistakes I ever made was putting the name biochar in our company. I just didn't understand what the industry was like at that time, or what it's evolved to, and which, it's just growing pains. If you Google biochar, there's over 1 million hits, and we're actually the only company that has all the governmental approvals that we have to produce the product and release it into the environment. What biochar is in general is it's a carbon that you produce from organic matter. We choose wood, and then it locks the carbon up. You put it in the ground. That's where the bio comes in. It was originally meant for agriculture, and we've expanded it to a lot of different industries. But that's where the term biochar comes from, is char going into the ground. And there's a lot of benefits in that. But because we make a pure carbon, and the way we do it is we keep it at temperature for 8 to 10 hours in our process and come out with a real high quality carbon, where our competitors keep it at temperature for a minute or less, or a couple of minutes. They use different technologies. So they're inside their carbon, there's still residues, that can, in certain instances be toxic. So we basically make a pure carbon, get all the residues out. That's why we're approved by all the governmental agencies, and especially the EPA. None of the others are approved by the EPA.
Is that still true to this day? I remember you had said that in a talk a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's an emerging industry.
We were approved in 2015, and nobody else has been approved.
Really?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's not saying they can't, but the problem is we have this technology patented, so they're not going to be able to keep their carbon at temperature as long as we have. So it may just be that, it may just be a situation where nobody ever else gets approved.
Huh. Curious. How's it different from just like burning wood and then like spreading ashes?
No, if you're burning wood, it turns into ash. You need fuel, heat, and oxygen to go to ash, right? What biochar is made by a process called pyrolysis. And in pyrolysis, you limit the oxygen, or we actually produce in the vacuum with no oxygen. So if there's no oxygen, it starts a chemical reaction, and it converts it into carbon versus going to ash. So that's the easy way to explain it. It's a chemical reaction versus just a fire.
So when it goes to ash, that means that the carbon that you would normally be capturing is being released into the atmosphere.
Exactly.
Because of the oxidation, right?
Exactly. And what we're doing is we're locking in about half the carbon that was originally present in the wood into a long-term stable carbon. Our carbon has been measured by government labs. Their estimate is we have a 17,000 year half-life in the soil.
Wow.
Even with the effects of the degradation of soil and everything going on there. So we effectively lock up the carbon from the air and put it back into the ground or into products, concrete, plastics. There's a lot of different things we do.
Yeah. So the benefit of that is that if someone had so how is it different from like taking the rotted wood and turning it into like a product? How is the environmental benefits measure up against something like that? Or is this type of wood that you're using even usable for anything besides biochar?
No,
that's the thing. It would have been waste.
Yeah, we don't cut down live trees. Okay, we take dead wood. The beetle, after the beetle has left the tree, you have a very limited time to use that wood, because they leave behind a fungus that makes the wood weak. So if you don't hurry up and make a 2x4 out of it or whatever, it's lost. And the only thing that happens there is either leave it in the forest for forest fuel for a forest fire, or it rots and everything goes back in the air. We also are approved to use railroad ties and telephone poles and treated woods and painted woods. None of those woods have a market. So we're just taking woods, that construction debris, things that would have gone to the landfill. In best case, it went to the landfill. Most times it's just piled up and burned.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Now, if you take a live tree, then basically that would have, that was still sequestering carbon. What we're using is stuff that's no longer sequestering carbon. It's only going to go the other route. Either go back into the air as methane carbon, or we sequester the carbon.
So it sounds like turning waste into a usable product sounds like something pretty awesome to me.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's what we do. We don't want to fight the battles on people saying that we're taking living matter out of the forest or whatever. So everything we take is landfill diversion, or basically dead trees that the government has paid someone to cut down for like fire prevention. Or currently we're taking in a lot of charred trees. We're chasing forest fires because we can use the charred trees. They're still good on the inside for our product. So we're helping to clean up the forest and help the forest regenerate quicker by taking the charred trees out of the forest and letting the sunshine hit the forest floor, and give the new forest a chance to grow faster.
Do you know how much waste wood like is created each year, or for example, just in Colorado from the beetle?
A lot. Well, just from the beetle, there's millions and millions of dead acres. That give you an idea how bad the beetle was. Just in British Columbia, I think there was 20 million dead hectares, which is like 40 million acres. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
it's
wiped out.
more.
Yeah, California is massive. Well, that's what the forest fires are, is all the dead trees. That's why they can't keep them. When you see the crown fires, that's from a lot of dead trees that basically have allowed the fire to go up into and they don't thin properly. But a lot of that's the dead wood, and it burns so hot with the dead trees that it sterilizes the soil. It's not like in the old days with well-managed forests and without a lot of dead trees, it would just stay on the ground and regenerate. But it actually was good for the forest fire in a proper way. But it's just one of those things. Then a healthy tree can defend itself against the beetle. So if they would just manage the forest properly, you wouldn't have all these, total wipeouts, because the tree can make a pitch, a sap, and push the beetle out, but you got to have water. And if the forest is so, so, packed, all the trees are under water stress and heat stress and then it has no defense against the beetle.
Right. So who's primarily purchasing your product at the moment compared to like when you first started the company?
We're moving into a lot of industrial uses
Mm-hmm.
versus when we first started. When we first started, I mean, truthfully, I sold most of it to the cannabis guys and the
Yeah.
hemp guy, yeah, for greatly increased yield. Because
Why? Why did they want it?
I can double and triple the yield of their plant for pennies. So basically, for less than $10, they can make an extra 1,000 or 2,000 or more in yield.
What's going on there? How is that possible?
Well, what we do, we have properties that bind nutrients and hold water. So especially in the specialty ag, the cannabis and hemp, they're always dancing on a knife's edge, putting in the nutrients, trying to get the max yield without burning the plant up.
Mm-hmm.
Where if you put our product in the soil, we're like a battery. We go in totally inert, but we bind nutrients and we hold the water. So when you fertilize, we bind it all up and we don't let it wash out. But it releases to the plant through something called the cation exchange property. So the plant is able to work with our product in the soil and be like a pig at a trough. It just eats and eats and eats as much as it wants without burning up. So that's why you get the increased yield. Because if you're trying to add the chemical fertilizers, the plant's just under a lot of stress, and it's just one mistake away from burning up. So it just doesn't get the right yield or the possible yield. Where with our product, it just feeds as much as it wants and grows as much as it can.
Did you have any kind of background in like science or biology?
I read a lot, man.
Yeah, you're just a business-minded person. You had this land and you saw all this waste being created and you found out about essentially a hole in the market and you decided to fill it, and you just I imagine you took the capital from your previous venture and put it into this, and now you're creating this product that essentially is taking waste and creating it, turning it into this insanely valuable product, not just for other businesses, but for the environment
Yes.
altogether. It's just very
Yeah.
interesting. And on top of that, you're creating the technology to make it as well.
Yeah. Now that one I didn't want to do, but that was a necessity. But yeah, no, but we've also we've got over 400 investors in our company now, friends and family type people.
Cool.
So, we let friends and family in to begin with, and they started telling their friends and family. And right now we have, I've got everything I own in this deal, plus, investment from 400 plus other people.
Mm-hmm.
So, because they all are like minded, they all want to save the world, or make their impact. And so
Yeah,
we're an avenue for them, for that to happen in a real way. It's not hocus pocus. It's not shit that's still in a lab.
for sure.
It's real. They come out and touch it, see it. The math adds up on carbon negativity. We're actually hopefully today there'll be a press release come out announcing a new trading platform that based on our carbon, on the carbon credits.
Oh, would you mind
So,
telling me a bit about that?
well, it's just that basically we create carbon credits and on
Yeah.
everything we produce. And there's, let's just say there's a lot of questionable deals going down in the carbon credit trading place.
As always in a new
And
unregulated
a new one.
market.
I think Bloomberg put out an article I read a while back. I think they thought 95% of the carbon credits traded in the last period of time is, let's just say, questionable. I mean,
Fucking
you can
joke.
argue they're fraudulent, but I'll just say questionable.
Uh-huh.
So what we've done, we didn't want to be painted with that brush because our credits are real. So we've gone and we've created our own platform. It's based on standards that were promulgated by the ISO back in 2006. I mean, we just went back to the real standards instead of all this hocus pocus stuff, and we're going to launch a platform based on that. And then, it's full chain of custody, blockchain, all the buzzwords,
Totally
because
that.
you got to audit it from production to use and verify that it went no matter that was not, did not allow the carbon back in the air. So there's a lot of things that we've based on just looking at the flaws in the other models.
Right. So are you going to sell these credits to raise capital in order to continue to expand your model out? Is that the idea?
Well, that's one source of capital. We're also,
Are you a private company?
we're a private company. We are being audited to SEC level audits in case we decide to go public. I mean, we're looking at a couple of SPACs currently, but but the carbon credits will be one avenue of funding. It's just
Uh-huh.
revenue. And then we're also doing joint ventures currently, which we've announced several recently. We'll be announcing a lot more in the future, but we've announced our joint venture with the Comanche tribe. We're putting a site in Texas, one in North Carolina, one in California that we got permitted. Those are all permitted. We just signed a deal with a foreign country in Southeast Asia. We'll announce that as soon as the press release is approved. It's with a
Right.
large conglomerate. So we're moving around the world. There's issues everywhere. I mean, every place has got their waste issues. We also clean up Superfund sites, do a lot of remediation. So that's what we're doing a lot with the Native Americans. We're setting up facilities on the Native American land because as a society, we've tended to dump most of our waste on reservations. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're working with the Native Americans to clean up the land in their reservations as well as provide jobs.
Right. What you're doing is pretty incredible, James. I'm just delighted to have you on the show just to chat for an hour. Can we talk about some of the devices that you personally invented and patented and why you seem to think it was a bit of a painful process?
Well, I mean, on previous life, I actually patented vehicles,
Uh-huh.
that I think some of the current electric vehicle companies may actually launch. So I invented one vehicle that carried freight and passengers together, and really high yield environment. We started building those vehicles, and then 9/11 happened, so I had to pivot real quick.
Huh.
Because everything for people who weren't in business at that time, you had to focus back on your basic business real fast to survive. And
Wow.
then in biochar world, we basically have invented this kiln process and the kiln technology, and we've computerized it and mechanized it, and we just took a different path. What we realized was wood, all the wood is different. My competitors try to take a you know, basically all the feedstock is different. So, there's different water content, different everything. And then they try to take non-uniform feedstock, run it through a uniform process, and they wonder why they get the results they have. That, I mean, ninth grade algebra should have taught them that equation's not going to work.
I can't remember my ninth grade algebra, man.
I didn't either, but every now and then I have flashbacks. But what we did was we recognized that all feedstocks are different, and you need a process that allows time and the conditions for if you got a wet piece of wood to convert over a dry piece of wood, if you got a large piece of wood over a smaller piece of wood. So what we realized was if there's no oxygen in the kiln, it's not going to go to ash. You got to have the oxygen for it to go to ash. So
which is what you don't want.
Yeah. So we basically created a technology where we were able to run this process in a vacuum, slight vacuum. So we can leave the converted stuff in there just bathing in the heat for hours while all the other stuff converts. So our process will run it for 8 to 10 hours till everything's converted to high quality. And that's what the corporations want. They need high quality, they need consistency, and that's what we give them. So when I started a kiln, we built the kiln and then we number up. So the kiln itself is a factory. It's got it's got that size and that's it. That size happens to fit on the back of a truck for mobile units, but that's another story. And then, so we don't make it bigger. Everybody, why don't you make it bigger? No, we don't make it bigger. It changes the science. So we just number up. So like some locations, we're allowed to have 300-400 kilns operating at the same time. So we convert a lot of waste wood. In the system, we just number it up versus making a big, multi-billion-dollar plant like some of our competitors try to do. When we start a kiln, I can't tell you if it's going to take 8 hours, 10 hours, or whatever, because it's going to go till it's done. We have an algorithm that drives everything. There's over 40,000 data points a second going into the algorithm, and that's what drives it. It just basically takes the kiln on a path with a lot of different variables, and it goes wherever it wants to go. It just ends up where it needs to end up.
So you had like a team of engineers working for you to create this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we had a team of engineers. They wouldn't quit engineering, so now we have one engineer. Yeah,
man.
But no, it's no. There's a group of engineers. We have very, very smart people, especially on the software side.
So how do you power these devices?
The beautiful thing is the wood itself creates the chemical reaction creates energy to drive the process.
So you're not you're not hooked into the grid to power these kilns and using like coal burning power. It's powered by the product.
We are using electricity to run the computers and the algorithms, but the process itself, the wood converting to carbon is an internal process where the energy from the wood fuels the chemical reaction.
Wow. So it doesn't sound, I'm sure the computers probably use some energy, but nothing compared to like something like a
no.
factory
That's why we have carbon credits to sell, because we sequester more carbon than we use in the process. That's how you create a carbon credit.
Yeah. Well, I figured like the benefit of the product, but no, that totally makes sense. That's pretty spectacular, actually.
Yeah, it's basically it's a it's a technology. I mean, I'm not going to take credit for it. I mean, the technology's been around since the Amazonian Indians. It's just people forget, or in their case, they were wiped out by diseases and knowledge was just lost. And then basically it's been recreated over the last 20, 30 years.
Okay. So you speak a lot about your competitors. What are some of your issues with the industry and kind of where do you see it going?
Uh, my issue with the industry is they, I don't belong to any industry organizations.
Hmm.
And the reason being, they define the term biochar too broadly. They, and I understand their point of view. They have to pay for their organizations. They need members. They even allow 10% carbon to be called biochar. Well, if you're out there working with the major corporations as I do, and then they go out and they test and they test us against other biochars and they get garbage. They literally get toxic materials in to test. So I always win, but the problem is that, it's just giving a black eye to the industry. Now, but they think it's fair. Everybody, anything with more than 10% carbon should be allowed to be called biochar according to these industry groups. Well, you could burn in your fireplace and pull your ash out and call it biochar under their definitions, and it's fine. There's a place for that stuff in theory. But that's the issue I have, because I chose to chase a high quality carbon market. And, that's just what I have to do. My mistake, once again, was calling my company Biochar Now,
Yeah.
because,
Never too late to rebrand, man.
well, I've been thinking about it, man. You think about it, but all the good names are taken. I guess it's one of those things you got to end up getting a case of beer or whatever and
Yeah.
come up with a name with a bunch of consonants in it and then try to, because all the good names, biocarbon and everything else that would be good, it's already been taken by other people in the industry.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
your product is more than 90% carbon, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're high quality. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and then, one of the universities just developed a process that can take our carbon into pure graphene for just a couple of $100 a ton. So that's
What is
another
graphene?
precedent. Graphene is pure carbon, basically the strongest material on Earth. So it's going to be used in construction. It's going to be construction materials will be used in batteries, and that processing line is being built as we speak, and that'll change the world when that comes online, because their process is like it's a small fraction of the cost of the current production of that type of product.
Yeah. Well, James, you've certainly got an eye for the future, man. I can see it already. Seems like it's not the first time you've come up with something that the market needs.
No. Last time it was electric vehicles before the battery technologies were there.
Mhm.
So, I mean, like one of our electric buses had enough power, 250 kilowatts on a bus. You could power a small city with it, but that's what it took to get through a shift, in a city travel. But in those days, the issue was finding enough batteries, or you got so many batteries on the bus, do you let any people on it? Nowadays the battery technology is going great and it's really coming around. So the neat vehicles nowadays weren't possible when we started on that company. Same thing with biochar, or this carbon, converting wood to carbon. In 10 years from now, it'll just be, I think it's safe to say, we're a proven technology. We got to get the carbon out of the air. We're doing it now. It's going to be scaled up. There will be fraud along the way, as in any new industry. but we're not some carbon capture technology that's still in some lab that needs government grants. I've got 70% margins on my product. You know, I just need the government to stay out of the way. You know,
I hear that.
yeah. You know, so that's you know, so I think that's why we're being looked at by the world and a lot of things like that. Our company has been looked upon in certain circles as the leader. I gave a presentation on Earth Day, on the Earth Day network worldwide. I think if you look at the speaker lineup, I was the only company, for-profit company, that was allowed to speak. You know, you had people like Pope Francis and stuff speaking, and I spoke after, you know, they broadcast my deal after him. But because the people in certain areas realize we are a solution. The theme this year was regenerative agriculture, and we're a leader in that.
Certainly.
But so we're being recognized in certain areas. We don't seek it out. It's just people find us and they know we're real. So,
well, yeah. What do you think about the role of for-profit companies when it comes to environmental action and, you know, reducing climate impacts? I think your company is one of the best examples I could possibly think of a for-profit business that's going to create substantial climate action. Is there any others that come to mind? And then, so I'm very deeply involved in the nonprofit space. I don't know if you know, I sell real estate and I donate half of my money to nonprofits, but I really want to support businesses like yours that have a viable model that could sell a very useful product to people. But like you just mentioned, you guys are actually carbon negative, so you're able to sell credit. Seems like that would be a great industry to invest in, and we could get a lot of work going because the market forces are there. I just wanted to ask you your thoughts on that.
yeah, no, the problem and why we'd never searched for grant. I mean, my last company was dependent on federal funds, the buses we sold to transit agencies,
It's
right?
brutal.
So yeah, it was feast or famine. It depends what administration was in there. You either had to ramp up and you had the problems of ramping up, or if another administration went in, you had to lay people off because you were dependent on government funds. And you just can't build a business that way. So that's why I avoid grants. I say that, but actually I've been offered grants to move to certain states and sites. But as a general rule, we avoid grants because the profits can drive the business. Now, I'm not opposed to people giving me grants, but I just don't have like somebody on staff applying for grants all day long. So that's it. You've got to make a profit. And if you do good, that's an added benefit. You know, if you take carbon out of the air, that's an added benefit. But if you're not making a profit, it's not sustainable. It's just that simple. And in the markets we're in, we're the low cost provider. I mean, we're the low cost solution. So, and we have patents on certain markets. So, you know, we're able to do, it's just a good, solid business model that happens to do good for the planet.
Yeah. Tell me about your vision, your plans for expansion. Where do you see the company in 10 years?
We've already got a path to be a multi-billion-dollar company very quickly.
I could see it.
Yeah, well, I'll just give you one quick, like I've been raising funds and of course they were whining, where's your orders? Where's your orders? So just in the
They
last
being
week,
the investors are whining?
yeah, investors, you know how Wall Street is. They go, yeah. So just in the last week, I went out and got contracts for over $600 million of annualized sales just in a week.
Congratulations.
So it's just like, okay, there's the orders. Now the market's there because, you know, it's a chicken and egg problem. You got to expand to meet the market. And then they go, well, if you need the money to expand, you got to show you have the contracts. It's just always the same vicious circle, but it's good. But we're going to expand. We've got about 30 deals in negotiation to put sites around the U.S. We've got deals. We've now finalized a deal in Southeast Asia. We'll start going there. I've got opportunities in Europe and Africa and Middle East. So we're going to expand around the world and just, you know, wherever there's issues, either cleanup issues or agricultural issues, and there's raw material to be able to be converted, that's where we'll go.
James, thanks for answering, man. It's really cool talking to you. It's you're a unique type. I love how you like there was the systems that you needed weren't there, and you're like, oh man, I just gotta create them. It's like you're not like an engineer, but you just did it. That's really cool. Can you tell me a little bit about how the oil and gas industry in particular uses your product to reduce their impacts beyond just the carbon credits that you would sell?
Yeah, we clean up their mess. It's a simple way to say it. We bind hydrocarbons. We can, like on the frac water spills, we can bind the salts. Like so, if you have a spill, we can clean it up. If and now oil and gas commissions in various states are starting to pass rules to allow our biochar to go down a well in abandoned wells. So they fill the well with our biochar before they cap it because we can bind the toxins and we're also a carbon sink. But historically, we've been used just to clean up their messes. So like when they pull a well pad site out, they put our carbon on the ground to bind up anything that was spilt. We've been approved by the Texas Railroad Commission to clean frac water spills because we can bind both salts and chemicals. And then we're working with pipeline companies to clean up underground messes. So that's basically, I mean, there's a lot of different specific things. We can also bind up the chemicals out of the air. So like if they need to filter benzene or whatever, like in refineries where they've got issues and they got odor and they've got chemicals they need to pull out of the air. We've been used to vent isooctane or some kind of weird octane molecule out of railroad tank cars. When they ship a trainload of oil from North Dakota down to Houston, they have to vent the tank cars before they can open them up. So we bind up all those octane molecules out of the air. So it's just, anything with an E and E at the back end, we can bind up.
Cool. Yeah, just curious. Are you aware of any other companies that have similar benefits to yours? I mean, the triple
I'm aware of
bottom
a lot of
line.
companies that make the claim.
Yeah, not specifically just biochar, but the same, like you guys are really strong on the triple bottom line. It's like profitable, scalable, huge environmental positive impact. So you aware of anything else that's similar to what you're doing? That just for my own benefit.
I mean, I'm biased. I don't spend much time looking up for competitors because I'm working, but I don't. A lot of competitors are raising a lot of money and then they disappear. They raise the money on the promise, but they don't seem to deliver. So right now, I know of people that are making claims, but when I'm tested against them by certain customers, I just know I get the business.
But why does it have to be competitors? I don't know if you understood my question. I'm thinking more broadly of a model that works similarly. So just because your product might sequester carbon through different things doesn't mean that like another company,
Okay.
like a DAC plant or something, which has a viable model where they suck carbon out of the air and then sell jet fuel.
If they can do it cost effectively without grants, that's a great deal. And especially the guys who are using it to create like new forms of concrete and stuff, weathered.
Yeah.
Pumping it in the ground, that's shit. I mean, whatever, teach their own. but like the guys who are literally creating a product out of it, those companies,
like jet fuel.
Yeah, jet fuel or the concrete.
See, like that's not a competitor of yours. That's just someone that has like a similar triple bottom line benefit. Yeah. That's what I was asking for.
No, that I do know CEOs of several of those companies, and they're doing really well. I mean, really, really well. So there are companies out there. It's just one of those things, and there's plenty of capital right now. I mean, this world is flooded with money right now. That's the problem because so many fraudulent people get funded. They got so much money, they're pushing it out without a lot of due diligence. But there's a lot of other things out there. Put it this way, I'm not worried about climate change because I know I mean, everybody badmouths capitalism, but trust me, man, there's enough deals out there and enough technologies and the force of capitalism behind it that we can take the carbon out of the air. Then when we create a ice age, we'll see what everybody has to say there, but that's another issue.
That is something I concern myself with, that most people aren't thinking of, the idea that if we, terraform the planet or whatever the opposite of that is by making it really warm, what'll happen when we get to the point where we pull so much out. But hopefully we can find like a nice equilibrium like we've had in the Holocene. But I'm here. We are. We're the stewards of the planet. We have so much power. We're in control. James, it's been great talking to you, man. Last question I have is just, what advice do you have for young folks who are working in the corporate world but are passionate about the impact that their businesses are having on the planet?
Well, it depends their risk profile. I will tell you, there's more opportunity in this world right now than I've ever seen in my lifetime. But you can't be risk averse. I mean, if you really want to participate in these new industries, you got to jump in with both feet. And it really is out there. Learn from the mistakes other people have made. It's amazing to me how many people are recreating the same mistakes that have been made and have been documented. They just don't do their research. So all these industries we're talking about are at the launch stage. The technologies are there. Now's the time. It's just like the cannabis industry was about 5-6 years ago. That's where these technologies are now. There's a lot of money to be made. There's a lot of people that are going to be left on the side of the road. Just do your own due diligence and jump in with both feet. I mean, because look, you don't want to sit on the porch when you're retired wondering what if, right? Mm-hmm. At least that's my viewpoint. That's why I do what I do.
Well, I appreciate you, James. And yeah, man, I mean, this is kind of just seems to be the story of humanity, repeating the same mistakes over and over again. It's the people who learn from their evolution that kind of eventually push the dial. But we just keep eating the fruit, man. I don't know if you know what I mean. But
oh no, yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Trust me.
Yeah.
I mean, and they aren't teaching squat in schools nowadays. They're just basically, it's amazing. It's like you can't tell them the math's wrong because it hurts their feeling. But the math, physics, and science are real. It's not like it's how you feel. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
But anyway, no, I appreciate the time, and we'll just keep pushing, and we'll do our part. And if anybody's interested in what we're doing, feel free to. You can reach me through our website, info that I get copied on. If you leave a message on our website, I get copied.
Cool. All right. Thanks for coming on, James. I really appreciate it. It's been a real pleasure.
You take care, Ethan. You keep doing what you're doing, man.
You got it, man. All right, everybody. See you next week. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Changing the Climate. Here at Climate Change Realty, we don't just donate 50% of our net commissions to fight climate change. We also donate a full 50% of our real estate referrals. So if you or anyone else you know is looking to buy or sell a home anywhere in the USA and would like to create thousands of dollars in donations without any cost out of pocket, please visit ccrboulder.com today.